Hello. What?
Hey man, hey, you gotta chill out a little bit. Please get comfortable.
I mean, there's only a few more things I could do to get comfortable, and most of them I can't stream on YouTube, so I'm not gonna do any of them.
Nice. Oh, we are okay. I was gonna ask about that because I know you guys mentioned it for the last one, but I couldn't catch it.
Yeah, we're streaming this on YouTube just because honestly, I don't know. No one really for the Iron Man one. I think we had like 6 or 7 people in it, and then I don't know if we had anyone for the last one, but that's because we had a couple problems where we got um the stream. The first one we tweeted out got taken down because Jerome was using a background of like Iron Man or something like that, and
I mean, that's something I would do, but still. Did y'all tweet out this link?
Not yet, because we're not up and running yet.
Okay.
I have it literally written down.
Okay. I'll like post it when I.
Yeah, I got it on deck.
Cool. I'm gonna be right back. I just have to get something out of the microwave.
Cool.
Oh, also, I got this in the mail today. I don't know if no, you're not on Instagram. He posted it on Instagram. Louis Fertel posted about this. It's like a sweatsuit well, it's a zip up hoodie, but it's a sweatsuit combo. And I don't know if you can see, but it's a rainbow stripe and it says Jane Fonda.
That's wonderful.
And I saw it and I was like, perfect. So I got it in the mail today. And of course I changed into it.
Of course. Hey, AC.
Oh.
Yo, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Huh. I wonder why I can't hear you. Hold on 1 second.
All right, AC can't hear us.
I'm thinking it's on my end. Hold on 1 second.
Nice.
Yo.
Hello. Hi.
All right. What's going on, guys?
Not much.
Not much. I'm gonna try and eat this before everything starts.
What would you make?
This is leftovers, but I made chicken soup. I was really happy. It was the first time I've ever made soup.
I don't know if I've ever made soup. I mean, it seems like it's a pretty easy thing to make, I imagine.
Oh my god, it was so easy. But then I have my roommate got some bread with a to-go meal she had a couple days ago. So I cut it up. I was allowed to. I made like herb butter, and then I put the cotija cheese from our tacos from last night on it. I'm real excited for that.
Yeah, we ordered in from this place that we found like a couple weeks ago that we keep ordering from them because like when they deliver, they like always leave a very nice note on it and like give us like free snacks like Doritos and like bags of cookies and stuff like that. So it's like we've ordered from them in the last 2 weeks probably 3 times. We order them once a week. Just if we're gonna order something because they have like a good menu too. So it's like
what kind of place is it?
It's like a American bar and grill type thing, but like with like actually like really good food.
We recently ordered from a place. We got pizza, but I think their name is just Bar 314. So I think they're like a more generic American pizza, bar food kind of stuff. And the pizza we got was basically a white pizza with prosciutto on it and honey.
Ooh, that sounds delicious.
It was probably the best pizza I've had all year.
That's exciting. By the way, Jerome said he's going to be a little bit late, so we're just waiting for him.
10-4?
I'm starting recording now just because I forgot to record at the beginning of last episode, so I'm not going to do that again.
Cool. I watched Endgame and most of Ragnarok today.
Good.
I didn't time things right. I wanted to watch both of those, if not Ultron also. But
yeah. When does your summer job start? You know?
I don't know because I know I'm going to have to do stuff beforehand. But like summer camp doesn't start until the last weekend of June. but I will have things to do beforehand. I interviewed for another school today.
That's nice.
Heyo.
Hi,
Don't get us blocked again, dude.
I got you blocked? How did I do that?
No, because didn't we get taken down because you had to use a copyrighted photo?
But I used it as like, I don't know. It might have happened that way. We'll find out soon enough. But this is
I
cool
also think it's
background.
because
It's so nicely
wasn't
framed.
there at the
I'm
time.
like between the two of them at the moment. Yeah, like it was.
Yeah,
just,
because it's not because you're currently in the middle of it, and so.
Yeah, no one's gonna assume like, oh yeah, he's definitely copyrighting that scene.
All right, I'm gonna tweet out the link. I have the link on deck.
Chrome Dog, what's up?
What's up, man?
I'm loving it.
I'm trying to find a copyright-free picture of Thor.
No, you don't have to use a copy. The reason it got taken out is because he wasn't in the frame. So and he was the only one on. So it was
that was
okay.
That was probably our guess. Yeah. Most likely that was what happened. But also YouTube is very random in how they take down stuff. So you never know.
Yeah. I
All
posted.
right, guys, you ready to go?
All I did was
Yeah,
post
let's
the
do it.
entire song "All Star" by Smash Mouth, and we took it down. Copyright issues.
Who's hosting this one?
You are.
I thought I was.
All right.
You are then. Fine.
All right. And 3 and 2 and 1. Welcome to Marvel Cinematic University, the podcast where we talk about the Marvel Cinematic University. I don't even know. Fuck, man, I fucked that up.
Run it back.
Yeah, let's go.
We are running live, by the way.
All right. Yeah.
It's all good.
Welcome to Marvel Cinematic University, the podcast where we talk about all the movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We started on going up to Infinity War. We've gone past Infinity War to Endgame, and now we are in a holding pattern, as everyone else in the entire world is. But we're using that holding pattern to talk about some of our favorite characters from the MCU. That's right, characters retrospective. But before we get into that, let me introduce my two great co-hosts, Anthony Canton III. Anthony, how you doing?
Good evening, everyone. It's going to be really fun to talk about Thor. There's a lot to get into with this character.
Absolutely. And speaking of Thor, the Thor of this podcast, the one, the only Jerome Chang. Jerome, how you doing?
Where's Jerome?
Jerome?
Hello.
Yes.
Sorry. It like lagged on my end. So when you were saying hello to me, it went like more like, so what is happening? Anyway, how are you?
Yeah, I'm doing well. You know, Zoom is doing Zoom things. And joining us is close personal friend, noted voicemail leaver, Michael Springthorpe, joining us live from his bedroom in Manhattan.
Hi, I'm literally so excited and so honored to finally be on the show proper, even though I kind of guest starred last one.
This is long overdue.
Yes, it's been long overdue, and we're here to talk about.
So happy to hear.
We're here to talk about a man that Michael Springthorpe once described as the ultimate himbo, Thor of the MCU. You know him; he's the god of thunder. I don't know, man. It's this is the third of the big character retrospectives, and I think it's easy to say that many of us are excited about this. I know, Jerome, let's first talk about, I know we talked about it before, but before we get into the character, let's get into your experiences dressing up as Thor in the past, please.
Oh yeah, that's the thing that happened. So it was the last company I worked at, and I somehow got convinced by my coworker. Sorry?
Give the whole name. Put them on blast.
I worked at Kobo. It was a e-reader company. But anyway, I worked on the CRM team. So I got convinced that I should definitely dress up as Thor for Halloween. Not knowing really my team or anyone, or the fact that no one on my team was going to dress up that day. And commuting in on a train was fantastic because I was in full costume in a packed train on the way to work, and then showed up to work, and it was the best time ever. I came in second place in our company-wide costume contest. I changed my name tag to say Thor Odin's son. It was a whole thing, and I never regret it. We'll definitely repost the photo again.
Yeah, the photo with you in the tree is
Oh, the tree, that's right. So that happened, obviously Halloween and Christmas don't come right after each other, but we had a terrible winter storm. And found a tree outside our house completely torn in half, like just down the middle, that I thought obviously what you do then is find your old Thor costume, put it on, and pose in front of it with your hammer as if you struck it down. And that's what I did.
That's so fucking funny.
Yeah, so we'll be reposting that soon
yeah.
after this
Jerome,
goes up.
Jerome, I'm sorry. I am ultimately a bad listener in that I didn't go back through the backlog. But and so because of that, haven't heard some episodes. But I haven't heard that story. Who did you lose to?
What do you mean?
You said you got second place.
Oh God, yeah, I lost to someone who was Dr. Evil, which was like such a dated. It was
That's
I don't
so
know.
funny.
It was a vote. It went well. He really played the character well. But I don't know. I mean, bald cap and a gray suit. I did like the full shebang. You'll see the photo when it gets posted. I think I put a lot more into it. But can't win the crowd sometimes. That's what it is.
And that story, I'm so glad to hear it again. New details. We didn't get that Dr. Evil.
This is actually new information. So
that's new information.
Michael Springthorpe.
No, I don't remember him saying he came in second in the costume contest. I mean,
I don't even. Yeah, I might not have.
But also, this was on I think like our first Thor episode, and we definitely were taking a lot less tangents back then. So
that was definitely the early stages of we're still trying to get to know each other.
Yeah. Exactly. And so since we're talking to you already, Jerome, I just want to use like what's your history with the character of Thor beyond dressing up as him? Were you a fan before the movies? Did the movies get you into him? What was the deal?
The movies definitely more did it for me. Like I was aware of Thor. Actually, a lot of characters that I was aware of that didn't appear in popular like television shows or movies at the time. AC will definitely know. I knew from Marvel Ultimate Alliance, the video game. So I was aware that there was this guy with like a really powerful hammer who could like zap people a bunch, but I didn't really know much about the character. I knew he came from Asgard. I like did the readings on it. So my first real experience watching anything Thor based was the first movie, and we talked about it back then, but I absolutely love Thor when he's on Earth specifically, and even early on where we don't really see obviously the fully formed like Ragnarok, what we love about him now version of Thor. Like you can just see in those early bits when he's in the coffee shop and when he has those moments on Earth, like Chris Hemsworth's charm like coming through there. So you could see the potential. Like that was like if that was his rookie season, you can see those flashes, like that 150-point game he got off and it was like in the coffee shop, and then you didn't know that he was going to realize his full MVP talent afterward.
AC, your history with Thor, the God of Thunder.
I mean, it kind of starts book-wise. I always talk about that big Marvel book that I had as a kid, and Thor's story, it was kind of like, it wasn't an origin because I think the story itself was a fight between him and the Wrecker, but he took on this is in the books originally it was the Donald Blake alter ego where he's a doctor and stuff like that. So that's where that whole transformation thing was interesting and cool. But yeah, to Jerome's point, Marvel Ultimate Alliance is like you kind of see the ultimate Thor, the cool Thor with the beard and the shorter hair, and he doesn't actually have the cape or anything like that. He just has the hammer and he's just really badass and things like that. So those two things were...
He was really more of a Nordic god in those two, especially when you
Yeah.
think about the voice work back then. Like, you're not getting Chris Hemsworth coming through on that. It's like, I don't even want to try to do the accent, but you have to watch and see.
Right, exactly.
Oh, we have to fight the bad guys.
yeah. So pretty much like that, yeah. Thor was building a lot of furniture with Mjolnir. That was a weird tangent that happened in Ultimate Alliance at that point.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting when I think about going back and rewatching the movies and kind of what I think about them now, a little older and kind of just like looking at the character for what it is. And I think originally, I remember seeing the first Thor and I was like, man, I really felt like this was more of like, it was so Shakespeare and so heavy into the science and magic and space and almost like there's this philosophical thing going on between him and Loki and Odin, obviously. But obviously we went through the Avengers and the Thor: The Dark World, which you know it was appropriate that it was labeled that film. But then it was, you know, we got to Ragnarok eventually, and I think the main thing that I take out of everything that I think about Thor is, out of any character, I feel like he's gone through the most introspection in terms of his own mental and emotional health that has been examined throughout the films. And I think they've actually done that better, even though the movies previously were not that great. But I think the character development is a lot better than I think people realize.
Mm-hmm. All right, Mike Springthorpe, what's your experience with Thor?
Before I get in, I've always been curious, AC, and again, guys, excuse me if this is something that's been discussed.
This is why it's retrospective. We can go back into it. It's totally fine.
This is an AC. This is an AC question about AC. Was there like a person, or because you're the comics king, on the pod, and I've always wondered, was there like a person or a moment in your like childhood that like gave you a comic for the first time, or where you like discovered it? Because I've always been curious how people, as someone who basically, if I didn't know about comic book movies, I wouldn't have known about comic books. I feel like growing up, they just weren't in my life. So I'm always interested in how people get into that.
Well, it's funny because it started with that book. My mom gave me a book. I think I was like 5 or 6 years old. It's this big red book. It's a little tattered now, but I still have it. And it had so many stories. It had Wolverine, Spider-Man, especially, Thor, X-Men stories, Fantastic Four, the introduction of Black Panther. Like all those stories were in there, and that's how I kind of was drawn to all of those stories. And that's what made me, as I got into like preteen phases, wanted to read the books more. So that big red book had so many like different stories, and just kind of opened my world up to it. So I was able to kind of appreciate it at an early age. So yeah, that's where it started.
Okay, thank you. I actually want
to do a follow-up comic question for AC on that, just because coming out of, I forget what was the extra scene that shows it, but like we talk about it when it came to Avengers, we were not really like, we just didn't get pumped about seeing Thanos or seeing the Infinity Gauntlet, just because like Jake and I didn't really have that attachment. And while it is a more recognizable thing to me, like it didn't hit me when I saw that extra scene of Mjolnir stuck in the ground. Like when you saw that, were you like, what was your reaction to it? Like, was Thor a big character for you? Were you hyped about it, or were you just kind of like, oh well, obviously Thor's coming next?
I was excited, definitely, because I mean, you look at the way Iron Man ended with the Avengers Initiative, and then you think about who are the potential members of this team. Obviously Hulk, and then after Iron Man 2, you see the Thor thing, and Thor is like, in a lot of ways, the characters is a really huge part, even though you wouldn't necessarily consider him a leader per se, but he's such a huge part of.
He's like a big hitter.
Yeah, he's like, because he kind of stretches all places. He goes into space, and he's a part of Earth, and he intersects with so many characters that it's a character that you can't help but feel excited for. But I definitely remember seeing Iron Man 2. I think that was 2010 it came out. And yeah, that was a very exciting moment for me, knowing that was coming.
Nice.
That's cool. I envy you having those moments, knowing that backstory. But Jake, to answer your question, as I said, like I didn't have any comics background growing up. I actually didn't watch either of the original 2 Thor movies until Saturday or Sunday of this week, and then
so it's like Captain America First Avenger.
Exactly. No, yeah. Exactly. I only watched Winter Soldier because right before Infinity War, because a good friend of mine, Mike, was like, you got to watch that. It's the best one.
Right. It's very highly regarded. Like,
yeah,
very like a large group of people. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was because I saw the Iron Man movies, I saw the Avengers movies, I saw Guardians, but it was because I didn't really have this relationship with the comic book movies And so I was like, okay, I saw Iron Man because it was the first one, and then I continued with it. I saw Avengers just because I like movies. But yeah, I didn't I'd never seen the Thor movies. I've always liked Thor because he's funny, and that's what I like in characters. But that's my relationship. I mean, I love him now. He's hands down my favorite character in the MCU. But another interesting thing is, I was a big mythology kid, and I was, Norse mythology was like a big part of that, and so like I was like intimately familiar with Norse mythology going into ever seeing any of these movies. And so I really love the design and the interpretation of like how they made it into the MCU, because obviously the MCU is all based on the comics, but the comics are all based on Norse mythology. And there's like, I think a higher percentage than many people would expect of correct things from Norse mythology in the MCU.
From what I understood, they basically just adopted the characters and placed them in the Marvel universe. It wasn't even a thing of like, we want a character like, it was almost just like, we are literally going to put these gods and these kind of stories in there.
It really is. I mean, the big thing is like Thor Ragnarok, like Ragnarok gets into like some dicey territory just because like the characters are not exactly the same. Like Hela is actually a daughter of Loki.
Right.
And Loki and Thor are not siblings in the way that they are in the MCU and in the comics. But for the most part, it really, and obviously the whole like, are they aliens? Are they gods?
That's the thing. That's probably my favorite thing about the way they transport is it's like, okay, how do we make gods work in this universe? Oh, they were just aliens who came to Earth. That's I think
that's the kind of thing that I felt really
is that what they
with
are,
Iron
though?
Man.
Yeah. Well, they're aliens insofar as they're not native to Earth, but like
it's the whole what you call science, we call magic. It's just that. Yeah.
I don't like it when aliens are like, they're like, we're aliens, and it's like, okay, well, you look exactly like humans. Like,
well, yeah, I don't know. I don't know why exactly that's the case. Why they look exactly like humans?
Lazy.
I don't know, but clearly the implication of it is that they were called gods because they had powers
because
and
they
went
showed
to
up
Earth.
1,000 years ago.
Yeah, on Midgard.
I'm just like, I wish they at least had like spiked penises or something where it was like, okay, that's
like it's why in Doctor Who Time Lords have two hearts. There's got to be one thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, so my experience with Thor is much like Michael Springthorpe. I didn't see the first Thor movies when they came out. I think just because I don't know, I was looking it up. It looks like the dollars that the movies made don't 100% bear this out, but I feel like Thor 1 didn't make as nearly as much of a cultural impact as, well, obviously didn't make near as much as Iron Man. And like I even feel like in Captain America it made a little less money, but like I think Captain America is just such a mainstay character that I was never hyped to see Thor 1. I think in some part, honestly, when I'm thinking about why I didn't care that much, I think the marketing of it, and might just be a wild take, but it seemed boring just because so much of the trailer took place in like a desert, and it's like, this is dumb. Am I gonna watch Thor? I don't know. That's just something.
Also, if you think about it, like of the moment, it's
what's up?
Like if you think about it of the moment, it's like Robert Downey Jr., Edward Norton, Chris Evans. Who the hell is Chris Hemsworth?
Yes, and I'll talk about Chris Hemsworth casting later in one of the categories. But yes, when I ended up circling back around, I actually didn't love Thor that much the first time I saw it. And I still think I'm a little lower on the original one than you guys are. I think the stuff on Earth is really good. I think the stuff not on Earth is like really not.
You gotta be really into it.
I think that I am too. It's definitely what you get when, like, I think that the first Thor is so, the stuff on Asgard is so influenced by Kenneth Branagh being the director that like it's so Shakespearean in a way that I think can be like eye rolling to you if you're not as into the mythology as other people might be, because I think that what Ragnarok shows is that there is an inherent silliness to well, not as silly, but like there's an inherent irony to gods being characters that interact with the rest of the universe that the original Thor just doesn't have. And
there's also
so
there's also a silliness, honestly, and no offense to any Vikings that are watching or listening, but like
yeah,
in mythology, Ragnarok it's one of these things where Ragnarok is a part of the mythology, but it also, like, in a weird way, hasn't happened yet. It's a prophecy. But the prophecy of Ragnarok is very detailed, of like, this is like Odin will battle Fenrir, the wolf, and will die fighting, or like Fenrir will swallow him, and then his son will fight him. Thor will battle the Midgard serpent, and they will kill each other. Like, this will happen, this will happen, this will happen. And so it's a thing where when it does happen, theoretically, the gods go, ooh, shit. All right, it's time for Ragnarok. Well, we all know what's going to happen, but we have to do it. And it's reading this, and I obviously, that is, I'm sure, like a very Viking, Norse, Scandinavian way of thinking, maybe. But like reading it, you just go like, okay, well, why don't they just do something different? You know, it's a very silly it's a very silly source material also.
Yes, right. And I think that I do want to say, I know that Springtip, you prefaced it with this, but if Kirk Cousins, Adam Thielen, who else, you know, if any, Dalvin Cook, if any Vikings are watching, we're sorry, we offended you.
Well, I mean, like, just about the
AC.
whole Asgard stuff and finally kind of breaking away from it when you get to Ragnarok, like Thor and Captain America kind of go through that same kind of general arc of like they're very deep into their mythology. Like Captain America is like in its period piece, and Thor is in Asgard and everything. Except Thor also has Dark World. Captain America immediately breaks from it when he's in present time and doing things like Winter Soldier and becomes like immediately modernized. But like not coincidentally for either, they become far more entertaining and far more interesting once they break free from their original story.
All right, so I want to get to the categories because I think that's going to spark a lot of good discussion. The first question that we've been asking is, what is the defining moment in your mind for the character of Thor? I will be going the opposite direction I went last time. Michael Springthorpe, what is the defining moment of Thor?
Shit.
Judging by your face, you don't have one. AC, what's the defining moment of Thor?
You know, it's funny. There are a few, but I think the main one was when, I want to say, Endgame, where he kills Thanos in that present timeline in 2018, and it doesn't fulfill him, obviously, because he failed afterwards, and it really took him to a place where he really had to search and find out who he was. I won't say the line because I'll save it for favorite line, but he says a line later that kind of, you know, tells you where his journey ended up, and more importantly, it kind of had this roundabout feeling that went all the way back to the original Thor and kind of the struggles that he had underneath all that bluster and confidence or fake confidence, you could say, to a lesser extent. And I felt like cutting off Thanos' head and it not fulfilling him, it really did change who he was overall as a character. And they did a good job of exploring that, revisiting with his mom later in the movie and things like that. And I think by the end of that, we saw the character in a new and more confident and more different direction than I think we would have expected.
I agree. Jerome.
Basically AC's explanation, but the moment is when Hela destroys Mjolnir.
That's
a good one.
That's like, it's
one.
Basically all the same. Like,
yeah,
he goes through the exact kind of same type of arc there because Mjolnir like represents his whole power. He thinks it's actually the source of his power, and then they really basically do the after school special with like, it was always inside of you.
He's not the god. He's not the god of hammer.
Sorry, yeah, because in the end, like it's just like, what are you the god of? And he's like thunder, and then sparkly. He didn't need a hammer to zap people.
Because again, I like have been watching all this, and like I all right. I don't want to say that like Thor has the queerest story arc of the MCU because there aren't inherently no queer story arcs, but like I relate to his story arc the most.
Oh, what about Joe Russo's cameo in Endgame? I'm kidding. Keep going.
No, you mean Stanley Tucci's character in First Avenger?
Oh, right. You're right. You're right. That. Yeah, I forgot about that theory. That's a good theory.
Yeah. I relate to it the most just because he has this constant need for like outside validation, which is what you don't want, which is what you were saying. But one of the most interesting things about it to me is that like I don't think he's gotten there at the end of Endgame.
No, I don't think so.
No, he's still in the search of it.
But in that way is like, yes, he's realized he doesn't need Mjolnir, but he's still like he's lost that one major outside validation. He realizes, and the problem is actually losing Mjolnir, or rather realizing that Mjolnir is not the source of his power, so to speak, might even detriment him. I'm fucking, doesn't really matter. It matters what Taika thinks, but like, but because it's like, that's such an easy target to be like, well, now that I know that Mjolnir isn't the target of my validation, I know that it's actually being called the strongest Avenger or being like, whatever the next thing is. And even when he's like measuring dicks with Chris Pratt at the end of Endgame, like in the spaceship, like
great scene.
He's only able to do that with Peter Quill. Like that's literally the only character he would be able to do that with, because he's the only character more insecure because of a doting mother and a withholding father. They both have the same situation.
Almost every hero in
good analysis
MCU has, with the father, like they all have daddy issues. That's
they really do.
And that's why I have
Cap doesn't have parents.
They are mine.
Cap has parents issues.
Yeah.
I just, I know that like Tony Stark has that, but like we don't see anything about.
I think the mother stuff though is actually because I think basically every hero in any genre has some sort of dad issues. I think the thing you're right though that does make him different is the doting mother, because I think that Tony Stark would not be like Tony Stark if his mother was, I mean,
he was probably drunk on wine all the time. That's what I just assume.
Yeah, exactly.
But this related to that ties in is like, for my defining moment, I would say actually when he's demanding in Endgame to be the one to do the snap, in a lot of ways. Actually, that's not a defining moment. I would agree with AC when he kills Thanos. But a really important moment to him, and in watching, like I said, a lot of his movies in these last few days, or a lot of his features in the movies, the scene with him and his mom, Frigga, in Endgame, like I was like moving around at the time, and it like brought me back down to the couch.
Right.
Yeah.
It really screwed me up in a positive way.
Yeah. It definitely was like, they didn't really use her almost at all well in the first two Thor movies, but it was like,
which is a fucking crime.
It was worth having Renee Russo.
Yeah.
For that scene.
I was like, man, they really were efficient in her, not only her time, but what she was able to deliver there in terms of a message.
Just quick side note. Why am I anyone who's noticed that Renee Russo's entire career these days is just whenever there's an ensemble movie about old guys, she's the love interest despite being like 20 years younger than all of them. Like all the movies with like Morgan Freeman and Robert De Niro or whatever, just like, we're gonna get his love interest.
It's a far cry from Thomas Crown Affair, is what you're saying.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's so sad how quickly that happens.
I mean, clearly she passed her last fuckable day.
As another aside, Mike, I thought him bringing up the Thor wanting to do the snap scene, I think it is an important moment too, because it's just another reminder that this dude is just looking for redemption. He's just looking just to redeem himself. He'll do literally anything, even at the cost of killing himself.
He feels like he has no purpose, which I think is an interesting place for them to pick up in Thor 4.
Yeah.
Because I think so much of his arc is about him realizing that he does not get fulfilled by vengeance. I think that there's a part of that in all of the movies that he feels like he has to hurt someone in order to not hurt someone, but like that it's honestly the way I'm thinking about it is it's the way I think about Kevin Durant and winning championships. That Thor thinks that if he finally avenges one person, like one more person's life he avenges, or one more person he gets revenge on, he'll be happy. Or in the same way Kevin Durant thinks every championship he'll get, he'll finally be happy, and he's never gonna be happy.
Yeah,
I think it's the same thing where it's like Thor just is at a place where he's like, okay, this clearly is not what is. He killed Thanos. You know what I mean? They killed Thanos. All the worlds have been conquered. There's nothing else he can do.
He's really immature and dumb
Mm-hmm.
in that way, and I mean that as a really immature and dumb person. Like he's equating this like one-to-one connection of like, oh well, if I just kill Thanos, then everything will be better. And it's because of the way he was raised and because of just like the way he was brought up.
And that he was in growing up, his value was his ability to fight wars and stuff like that. Almost like a certain 7-foot basketball player's main thing growing up that his value was playing basketball. But I'm not saying that they're one-to-one, because Kevin Durant is like not likable where Thor is. But anyway, what? Okay, I'm gonna. Hey, everyone who likes Kevin Durant come over to my house. I expect no line outside my door. Anyway, so yeah, I think that is. That's why I think probably my defining moment is, other than the ones you said, because I think that chopping off Thanos' head. I think actually the whole bit from the shot of him sitting on the bench in the Avengers HQ from the trailer to him chopping off his head, like that whole bit is his defining moment. But I think the bit where he finally goes God of Thunder against Hela is a really big moment, because like he lost his eye.
I can't argue with that one.
It's the moment where he finally like really faced adversity in a way that he hadn't before, and he came measured up to it. And I don't know. I think that's really where that is a big part of his growth, is realizing that he is, because even in the movies that even in his own movies, it's never that he's really at risk of really, dying. It's more that he's trying to protect other people. Sure. And that's when the few moments where he's actually in danger and he needs to do something for himself. So I think
in the first Thor, he does, because he basically dies and then finally earns his worthiness.
Correct.
So
yeah, but I think what I would say is I think that the climax of the movie is more about him protecting Jane and the people of the town. Sure. Like I think that the I agree that does happen, but that's almost like a sacrifice, and not in the way where like he's like beaten down and he thinks he's gonna lose. Like he is, it's I think a very strong moment, especially because it looks cool and it's a cathartic moment, but also lightning starts coming from his eyes. So
right.
Oh my god. Anyway. There's nothing hotter than when lightning starts coming out of his eyes.
I agree. Speaking of which, what has aged the best about Thor as a character?
Is that to me?
No, well, I was saying it to everyone. I have an answer that I want to start off.
Why you start us off? We never let the host start off with the answer.
Yeah, I have a good because it's general. I think that if you look back at it, and Jerome alluded to this earlier, casting Chris Hemsworth has aged really perfectly. Because if you think about it, you were talking about before that Robert Downey Jr. obviously had a lot of problems, but he was a well-established actor. Chris Evans was already in the Fantastic Four. Like he already been in a superhero movie. Edward Norton, multi-time Academy Award nominee. Like, well-respected actor. Chris Hemsworth, like, you forget how little he was in before Thor. The only thing he really was in that was of any note was the first 5 minutes of Star Trek.
Yeah.
That's it.
As one of the other Chris's dads.
Exactly. That's
just him, Sonny Chris's.
Yeah, exactly. It's the Chris Power. I wonder how that should affect Chris Power rankings. That Chris Hemsworth is
Chris Pine's dad.
Yeah, Chris Pine's dad. But in case anyone's wondering, mine actually is pretty straightforward. I think I would go Chris Hemsworth slightly above Chris Evans, then Chris Pine, and then way above Chris Pratt.
Pratt really.
God.
What are you doing? What's yours, sweet dog?
I'm scoffing at the slightly. I mean, it is a Hemsworth party right here.
Sure, but the thing is, I like Chris Evans. I like Chris Evans in other stuff. Like I think Chris Evans I don't
see
know.
you, Jerome. We'll come back to it.
Evans is very underrated.
I love Chris Evans. I think he's just a really funny guy.
No,
Anyway,
he's amazing.
He's great.
Chris, and the thing is that the problem I have with Chris Evans is that he like wants to be a serious actor.
sure.
As Chris Hemsworth wants to play himbos in every single movie. and
That's
he's
true.
happy with that.
That's true.
And
Now,
that's
I
all
do want to
want.
know also, if we were to add him on, I even think I would at this point put Chris Messina ahead of Chris Pratt, and that says a lot about what's happened with Chris Pratt.
But I would put Chris D'Elia below. Chris.
Oh yes,
That's
he's
fair.
one of the
Yeah,
few
yeah,
Chris's.
yeah,
Chris
yeah.
D'Elia and Chris Christie are like the two Chris's that are definitely below.
Right.
I'm
gonna
anyway.
Chris Christie did hug Obama that one time.
He did, but he also, I don't know if you guys saw, but I saw he was trending on Twitter, and I immediately knew he said some objectionable things
Died?
about COVID, and that he had said objectionable things about COVID, and sure enough, now, at this point, any politician trends on Twitter, you can just guess, like they said.
It's like the
that
hammer
people should die.
returning to the cat.
Yeah. Anyway,
We need to go.
yeah.
to go back actually to something Jerome said.
Sure.
You were talking about power ranking the Chris's, and you gave your ranking, and obviously Chris Pratt was at the bottom, and we all kind of muddled in agreement. And then Jerome said, "Jerome, do you want to repeat it?"
I just said he was up there, and it was a real Pratt fall.
Yeah.
That's good.
That's good
Good
comedy, and it's also good commentary.
Thank you. I'm gonna just piggyback Jake, just because mine basically is the same thing, just said a bit differently. His charm has aged beautifully throughout the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. And it's
Yeah,
all the
he's
same.
just. I think, like a lot of actors who look like Chris Hemsworth, it took a while for people to realize that he is funny, and now in hindsight, it's like, why on earth did we ever want this guy to play stoic ever? I think that there's a big. I think that I don't know what it is, but I guess in Australia, people that are so beautiful that you can be as attractive as Chris Hemsworth and still develop a personality. Whereas in the United States, generally, if you're that attractive, you don't.
Right.
It's just an average attractiveness, scale.
Yeah. Also, he has like two super handsome brothers too, so I think that helps. Okay, he has one super handsome brother, and then Luke, but
then he has the third Manning brother.
Yeah, exactly. He has Cooper Manning. Yeah. Anyway, AC, what's H best about Thor?
I think the character itself, the story itself. I'd say
that's way too general. Come on, you gotta be more specific.
Yeah, you gotta be more specific than that.
I think Thor has aged best.
All right, hit us.
Let me just roll. No, I think the funny thing about the character and the story itself, and I think a good example of this is his relationship with Loki. He remains so steadfast and obsessed with trying to steer Loki to the right side that it does, by the dark world, get really irritating. In a sense, it's like this dude is always gonna be running game. He's always gonna be doing tricks. There's always gonna be some nonsense. And then by the time we get to Ragnarok, I thought that scene was really informative when they're in the elevator on the way up, and Thor is talking with him, and he's like, I realized that this is you, and this is who you're gonna be and how you're gonna be. And I've tried all this time to try and make you something that you're not, but you're just this person. And then he, as Loki tries to trick him once again, Thor is hip to the game. And
so
I think
more specifically, his self-awareness is
his
really well.
his self-awareness. I mentioned earlier the self-introspection is something that I don't think he was willing to do earlier in films, and I think also that's a credit to really the writers across in kind of guiding him towards that way. Russo's included, because I thought his journey in Infinity War was really important. He had so much screen time, and I think there were just so many conversations that he had with different characters that kind of led to that moment of arriving in Wakanda. I thought his relationship with Rocket is really underrated and really important in that way too.
I'm so excited for that in the next
Reddit.
Yeah, Thor or Guardians,
Sweet Rabbit. Yeah, whatever iteration that ends up being. But like long story short, just the character itself and his development mentally and emotionally to a place where you can be vulnerable and get to a place where you can kind of move off that and acknowledge that there are issues, but at the same time still be a hero.
Mm-hmm. Springthorpe, I know we kind of talked about yours a little bit. Did you have anything more specific?
No, I would say if I were to say anything more specific, I would just be the search Just the No, actually I don't. I'm thinking of the next question. Never mind.
All right. And the next question, of course, is what's aged the worst? I'll let you go first since you're thinking about it. Spring Thor, what's aged the worst about Thor?
Oh, I mean, what's aged the worst about Thor besides the first two movies?
Fair.
Is honestly going back and watching it today, the fat jokes in Endgame.
Mm-hmm.
I was a huge fan. I loved it the first, two times I saw it, and then watching it again today, I was like, I don't know. It's the one moment where it's like, when they're trying to snap, when it's in the same scene where they're deciding who's gonna do the snap,
Right.
and Don Cheadle he goes, do you know what's running through my blood? And Don Cheadle goes, Cheese Whiz. And it's like, I thought we were done with this.
Right.
Yeah, the thing is, I think Endgame tries to have its cake and eat it too.
On him.
They try to have their cake and eat it too, that they want to have a plot line that Thor is so depressed that he becomes an alcoholic and starts overeating. But if you're going to do that, you really can't have that many fat jokes. You need to choose one or the other. Either it's a point of comedy or it's a part of his character development. And I think that they make too many jokes about it for really to be treated. Like, I can say from like an outside view that it's part of his character development, but the movie doesn't treat it like that. It treats it like a punchline, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Also, for that specific scene, there just isn't a lot for Don Cheadle to say in that movie, so I think you need to give him lines every now and then.
I mean, yeah, I like the way he says it. It's a funny joke. But...
I mean, his delivery is great. Fucking Don Cheadle.
Yeah.
AC.
Okay, so I would say specifically in the first two films, and obviously the third film kind of did this too. The lack of usage of the Warriors 3 and Lady Sif. I'd say those characters probably could have gotten a lot more shine. I feel like in the books and even in some of the animated TV series, they do a little bit of a better job in terms of involving those characters. And when you're on Asgard, feeling like they're kind of a part of it. And I thought, even though it was cool seeing Hela being badass and killing everybody so easily on Asgard and Ragnarok, it kind of diluted what those characters were in the first two films. And they kind of have made them be almost like, yeah, they're important, but... And because they did that in the first two films, it made it easier to just write them out as kind of like as a plot device.
I'm glad they didn't get rid of Sif, because Sif was actually the only one I really was interested in. I think the other ones, especially Fandral, is not a good character. And I don't think it helps that they recast him. They took one, boring actor on an NBC show and replaced him with a not boring actor on an NBC show.
I mean, they did want the second actor.
Yeah, Zachary Levi was supposed to be Fandral in the first one, but they had to recast him with human white bread Josh Dallas. It just doesn't work. But I agree that they could definitely utilize them better.
They're basically his roadie in a way. When you watch the first movie, and it's like Rhodey is. I mean, he's saying that Thor's blood is full of cheese whiz in Endgame, and yet those guys died 3 years before.
Right.
Let me ask a question. Let me just ask a question, everybody. So I mentioned those characters, but how do you feel the usage of Heimdall was throughout the series?
I think it was based on the casting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's something I wonder about is how it would have changed, because I would actually bet a lot of money that if Idris Elba didn't keep growing in fame as the movies went on, he wouldn't have been in 2 and 3 nearly as much. Especially 3. He would not have had the arc that he has in Ragnarok.
Oh my God,
that wasn't more famous.
Agreed.
He's watching the original Thor it's like okay, cool to Heimdall.
I mean, it's the same thing. It's the same, and it worked out much better in Thor because I think Heimdall's a fine character to have stuff with, and I think he's a really interesting character. But it's the same thing that happened.
I think he's cool too, but it's just like, but he's not Idris Elba.
No, of course not.
Right,
what I was gonna say is compare it to the fact that it's how it's why there's so much mystique in the X-Men later movies because Jennifer Lawrence became so famous. It's like you have to, when someone becomes so famous and they're still on contract, it's like give them stuff to do.
Whoa, can you guys imagine if in an alternate universe they cast Idris Elba as Thanos, then first of all, then he actually would have been a person of color.
Yes, that's true.
Yep, that's true.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
Jerome, thing that aged the worst
Loki.
about Thor.
Loki.
I think that's probably fair.
Yeah. He was great, and then they loved him a little too much and
committed war crimes.
Yeah, well, there was that too. Loki kind of had the Tom Hiddleston bump, right? Like he becomes popular off of it, and then it's just kind of like we have to keep on going back to the well.
Yeah, and the thing is, I get why people love Idris Elba. I love Idris Elba. I don't feel similarly about Tom Hiddleston.
You don't Tom Hiddleston.
I don't, and like there's not many. I'm a big fan of a lot of people. I like almost every actor in the MCU. I'm just not a fan of Tom Hiddleston.
Right.
Ever since he patted himself on the back of the Golden Globes for making The Night Manager, because some people who are in Sudan doing like humanitarian work said they liked the show.
Man.
Anyway,
that's really important.
I understood, but you remember that though. It was one of the douchiest things I've ever seen on television. Because you thought that he was going to say like, and you know what, it's so great that we get to make work like that can help people. But it ended up being
all
just
the
like
night managers out there.
Exactly. Anyway, so my answer for what's aged the worst, I would say two things. One, I understand that Thor has to have long hair just until he gets his hair cut. So I'm not going to say that. But I think that either it's just the way it looks naturally, or they brightened it, but I think his hair color is way too light in the first one, which is something I noticed. It looks so bright. It looks so unnatural, especially in comparison to his beard. I know Sprinkler thinks it's a silly thing to say, but it looks silly.
I'm laughing because I thought
his eyes look funny too.
That's
to
fair.
be honest, it made his eyes look funny.
Like they said that was one of the problems early on, that like they purposely like made it like platinum blonde in the
and it just doesn't look good at all.
Right.
Also, another thing that doesn't work is just generally him talking about the realms being in chaos really just makes you roll your eyes when you look back.
What are the realms? What are the realms?
I don't know. There are 9 of them.
9 random planets? Are they 9 dimensions?
They're planets, I believe.
Okay, but Doctor Strange said...
They're more of like 9 dimensions.
They are, but Earth is in the same dimension as Asgard.
In Endgame, Doctor Strange says, or not Endgame, in Ragnarok, Doctor Strange says, I monitor people for like things in other realms, and it's like, okay, why are you saying
maybe it's galaxies? I don't know, but I know that they're all, because it has to be in the same dimension though, because they take a spaceship from Asgard to Earth. So clearly, I think it's some type of like. I think in the Dark World, they make it seem like it's sort of like galaxy, like maybe arms of a spiral galaxy. I don't know what the actual scientific analog is.
I feel like in Dark World the comparison is that they are just 9 planet, and this makes the most sense to my brain, is that it's just 9 planets in the same solar system because they line up.
I that's why I don't think it's the same solar system, because obviously we would know that Asgard existed. That's why I'm saying galaxies.
Why would we know that Asgard existed?
If it was in our solar system.
Oh shit! I forgot that Midgard was a planet in it.
Yeah,
I forgot. Exactly. See, it's funny. Like Avengers, Earth's Mightiest Heroes, the cartoon did a storyline on this, like with the 9 realms collapsing, and I just can't remember.
It's just
I have to go back.
This is what aged the worst.
Yeah. What the fuck is the
realm? On top of that, I want to add another age is the worst. But it was good. Like it was the right call for the movie itself. But the threat of Ragnarok aged terribly between Ultron because like basically his whole thing coming out of Ultron was like he had to like prevent Ragnarok, and then ultimately it was like that was not even
like, oh shoot, gotta let it happen.
Yeah.
Ragnarok is literally the apocalypse in Norse mythology. It's the fate of the gods is what it translates to, and it is just like this isn't what it is in the mythology, but in the movie it's Surtur taking over, destroying Asgard, and that kind of almost happens like in the rear view mirror.
Yes,
they're flying away.
Now I have a question. Yeah. What's your guys' opinion on the fact that Surtur is played by the guy who plays Mr. Krabs? Make you happy or sad? Because make you very happy.
I didn't know that.
My man has it's a
Clancy Brown, which is one of the best names in Hollywood.
That's a great name.
Clancy Brown has a great voice, by the way.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Because I think he does Lex Luthor in animated.
Oh, he's a very working actor.
He's really good. Yeah.
He has a number of other roles.
Yeah.
Like if you look at his IMDb, that that people will recognize.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that that's something that makes me very happy when I watch it because you can hear it a little bit.
Anyway,
anyway,
it's like Uncle Phil in Being Shredder and Ninja Turtles.
This one is very similar to the last one, but if you could change one thing about the character's arc or story, what would you change?
Just to switch. No, I mean, like, obviously, whatever the thing that didn't age well, it's like I just wish Tom Hiddleston didn't get so popular. But,
that's fair. I think that's a fair. That the movies are. I think after the first one, Loki is too involved in the rest of them, especially I think in the Dark World.
Especially after the war crimes.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not to repeat just like whatever didn't age the best. It's I wish we just got to letting go of Asgard sooner. Like the way I was saying how Captain America just basically has first Avenger and then immediately goes to Winter Soldier and we are like in cool Captain America times. Like I just wish we got to like how great like good Thor like a lot sooner. But I think it was just that idea of really, I mean, actually similarly to Tom Hiddleston, I wish like I'm happy Game of Thrones worked out so well, but because Game of Thrones worked out so well, they like went hard into it for Dark World. Like, wasn't the director for it?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be Patty Jenkins, and then they got Alan Taylor, who is
sounds British as fuck. That's one of the most British names I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah, and he's just like it. The thing about the Dark World, it really just if you see the action sequences in the Dark World, which I think the last action bit with like the portals and things getting teleporting back and forth.
That's a good action piece. Yeah,
but I think a lot of like the stuff on the actual Dark World is just looks so. It looks bad for a movie. Like if you saw that on TV, it'd be like, oh shit, that's so cool. But it's like this is a $150 million movie. Right. Probably should look better than this. But yeah, I think that you're right about Tom Hiddleston.
At what age the worst? Not age worse. Storyline. So one thing that I would like to change is I think what the hell was the name of the villain in the Dark World? I can't even remember. Malekith. Okay. I feel like that whole Infinity Stone story could have been done by somebody else. I don't know why. The dude just was not very interesting in any type of way. It was almost like this monotone, robotic kind of villain that didn't really make you care.
Yeah, I think a big thing is a huge mistake they made is making him and Curse speak in a fake language. I think there's just no. It's so hard to develop a character when you're speaking a fictional language, especially when just based on what I know about them replacing a director late. Like I guarantee you that they didn't have enough time to properly learn all the lines, so they're probably focusing more on learning how to say these made up words than they are acting. Like it's just so alienating. They don't feel like
alienating.
But yeah.
I think personally, I would have liked to see. I would have liked to see. I know they're gonna bring him in at some point, maybe in this upcoming movie. But Beta Ray Bill could have played a big part earlier. I think you could have definitely had him play a part and almost kind of be like a frenemy, at least.
Because Beta Ray Bill is supposed to be pretty closely tied with Stormbreaker too, right?
Yes. Yeah. Actually, he's the one who wields it in the books, and he's pretty strong himself. And that's actually the Planet Hulk. That story is a good one for like all of those types of space characters who kind of are like really strong too.
But then Planet Hulk, they basically do anyway.
They basically do it here, which you could have, but if we don't get him there, obviously we don't get a character like Korg who shows up.
And I think that I think that there's. I'm not worried about them not getting to big Thor characters because. Clearly, the Thor movies make a lot of money. Chris Hemsworth likes doing them. They're critically Ragnarok is beloved by critics and fans alike. I think as long as Chris Hemsworth wants to be Thor, they're going to keep. What do you say?
They will soon be directed and written by an Oscar nominee or an Oscar.
Yes, it'll be the second. And actually, Thor is the only. Thor will have the two.
Because
movies directed by Oscar-nominated people.
But Thor, Kenneth Branagh, that doesn't fucking count.
He has like 5 Oscar nominations. What are you talking about?
Sure, but it just doesn't count in the same way as Taika.
I could not disagree with you more. Kenneth Branagh actually has much more. Like I love Taika's movies, and I think Kenneth Branagh makes boring movies. But
no. We're talking about 2 different things, and I'm saying like it's the ownership of the film.
That's fair. That's fair. Anyway,
That's why it doesn't count.
I understand. But anyway, yeah, I think that we're gonna get to all the villains and stuff like that. Springthorpe, what would you change about the character's arc or whatever?
3, and I promise quick things. Hair should have been short hair the entire time. Screw the character. Honestly, even in the first movie, his costume is so corny. Just scrap it and modernize it. Give him short hair. It would have been way better. Kicking the worthiness arc into high gear sooner, because it stalls through Dark World. It does not exist in Dark World, and it is just chugga in the original one. And it's not until the Jerome Chang trilogy of Ragnarok, Infinity War, Endgame that it gets injected with that nitroglycerin and becomes more of a thing. And then lastly, the relationship and the appearances of Frigga. That is an underrated relationship in this MCU, and I understand obviously it's underrated because Frigga is barely in it, but Renee Russo is gay rights. She is amazing in it. The two of them, literally that one scene in Endgame where she says she's like, the future has not been kind to you, and then she's like, eat a salad, and she doesn't say honey, but she basically is like, eat a salad, honey.
Yes.
And then
honey is just not in the vernacular for Asgardians.
Exactly. But the most important line for Frigga to me in that scene is when Thor puts his hand, he goes when Rocket's we gotta go.
Right.
And he puts his hand out to get Mjolnir back, or Mjolnir. And Mjolnir. And he's standing there for a minute for a while, and Rocket's what the fuck? And Frigga is just completely content, and she eventually goes, sometimes it takes a minute. And it's that is she is such a caring, loving mother. And I know, Jake, you were talking about that, that's the difference of Thor versus some of these other superheroes, is the mother character is I have a great relationship with my mom. I am a very big mama's boy. For anyone who really knows me, Jake does. And I feel that in such a deep way of that deep connection with the mom is so important, and I wish there was so much more of that. Fuck Odin. Also you need Odin in exactly the same way you have him, for it to work. But
so I'm glad you bring that up.
More Frigga. We needed a scene like that Endgame scene in Dark World, especially in Dark World, and in Thor. We needed at least one scene in both of those movies.
I'm happy you bring that up, because if you have more of her, she also probably makes Loki more compelling too, because that's actually what happens out of that also.
Especially because he's adopted and he knows that, and she's
the person who where Odin divides Loki and Thor, she really kind of brings them together because they both have sincere true love for her. So I didn't even think about that, but that's such a good point to have more of her in it. Although obviously her death is the catalyst to kind of bring them together, but it's one of those things where in this back and forth, it can make the Thor Loki stuff not feel as tired if she still exists in this dynamic.
Yeah.
I would love for Taika to bring Renee back
somehow.
In obviously in flashback or something, but I would love, or Force Ghosts or whatever. But I would love
we don't have enough Force Ghosts in this thing.
I mean, she is a witch
in the MCU.
She is a witch.
If any character could have the ability to project herself when she's dead, I mean, she's a witch.
Where does Loki get all his trickery of coming back from dead? I assume she has to have something to do with it. So she gets at least one.
I feel that actually is a great point, Jerome. I feel she was I know that he's a frost giant, which is another thing that is accurate to the mythology. she's like, I know that he's a frost giant and therefore probably has extra powers Thor will never be able to do, and taught him all these things as a kid.
Yeah.
All right, and then my answer for the question is I just wish that there was some more consistency with the Jane Foster stuff. Like I wish we just saw them breaking up. I think that's just and I wish that much like everyone with work these days, Natalie Portman wasn't phoning it in through her performance in that movie in Dark World. I just think that is because the thing that ties him to Earth as a character is Jane Foster, but it's so little that is on the screen that it kind of makes it like it doesn't feel as powerful when it's supposed to be about him like wanting to protect the planet that the woman he loves is on. It's like, oh wait, I completely forgot that there's a woman he loves because she's just not. What?
I don't even see. I don't know. Watching Thor, I was like, I don't get it. Like I get it because it's like she's the biggest character that's a straight woman and he's the biggest character that's a straight man. So sure, I'm not surprised when they kiss at the end of the movie. I didn't see it.
They just don't have chemistry, really.
Right.
Yeah.
Who I bet Natalie Portman has chemistry with? Tessa Thompson.
I was about to say.
Yeah. I mean, we can only hope. Anyway.
I know you listen.
So the next category, and let's get this one a little quicker because we're going a little long. Not that I mind, but it's a weeknight.
You invited me on the show.
I understand. Favorite line. Let's go to the person I invited on the show, Michael Springthorpe. What's your favorite line for Thor?
When in the scene I already mentioned, he's reaching for Mjolnir, and it eventually comes after a minute, and he grabs it and he gets all excited like a golden retriever, which is what he is. And he goes, oh, I am still worthy.
Yes, that's a great moment.
And Anthony Canton the third, favorite Thor line.
All right, favorite Thor line is to Valkyrie in Endgame at the end where he says, it's time for me to be who I am rather than who I'm supposed to be. And it's poignant in the way that he kind of realizes that I was chasing this crown at the beginning, not really worth it. I'm destined to be my own person, and I'm still trying to figure that out. And it takes some real good self-introspection to realize that you can put the power of that into somebody else. And I thought that was very important, very cool.
Jerome?
Okay, so there was this one time my brother transformed into a snake.
Oh, this is mine
because
too.
he knows how much I like snakes, and so I pick up the snake to admire it. But then he turned back and went, "Ah, it's me!" And then he stabbed me.
We were 8. That's my favorite. I agree. That was also mine. Thank you, Jerome. I think that is just such a great delivery by Chris Hemsworth.
It's like perfect Hemsworth. Perfectly sums up their it's for all the things that you can get annoyed with the relationship between Loki and Thor. Like that is the best description of the relationship right there. So yeah, no, it's my favorite. Since you have that too, could I offer just like a second one?
Sure.
Yes.
This is my friend. He's a tree.
Interesting thing. He in Endgame, he says like hello tree when he like sees him again. Despite the fact that in Infinity War, doesn't he reveal like canonically he speaks Groot language, right?
Yes,
sure, but Groot understands.
So I'm curious. Wait, I think that means that in Groot speak, Groot's name means tree, just like how some people are named Daisy or Angel, but it's not weird.
Yeah,
that's an interesting.
That's a really good point. Yeah, for sure. I think I like that also because like Thor, especially once you get to like the Ragnarok and Infinity War and Endgame stages, he has an almost like Deadpool meta view of everything all the time. Like he always like provides some sort of like extra commentary on everything that's going on, and but like more so it's just like it's how comfortable he is in this world, as opposed to a lot of people who are still kind of getting used to it because honestly he's a god, he's seen everything, and to your point, like it extends to like he's never met the Guardians, but he knows Groot, like he knows how to speak Groot, like he is worldly.
not to be like fake deep about things, but like in a lot of ways, he's the most human of the main 4 Avengers.
Oh yeah.
Because just because of like the story he's given, which actually I don't know if that's covered by a question, but
so the next question I'm going to ask is, what is your favorite scene with Thor in it in one of his movies or an ensemble movie? AC, I'll start with you.
You start us.
Oh, you want me to start? Okay. Thor
yeah,
entering Wakanda, easy. It's actually not even close for me.
Oh yeah.
I think it's just it's fun. It's so cool.
It's number one, definitely. Number two, for sure, for me is What Are You the God of Again? And that is just magical. It's just a magical way to kind of cap off that climactic final battle.
Springthorpe?
I mean, yeah, it's entering Wakanda. But it also just like, I don't know, I just want to say something from like Ragnarok just because it's like the best Thor movie.
Oh yeah, you kind of I don't
so I just feel bad it's not from Ragnarok. So if the only thing I would say to fight that is the fight scene with the Hulk, like the battle. And that also goes to great lines, which is he's a friend from work.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. I am because like Thor is just kind of, he has some of like the iconic like moments that it's almost unfair, like obviously you're gonna go there. So as like my B-sides or number twos, it is his fight. It's his fight with Hulk, but not his physical fight. It's his arguments when they're stuck in, like just all the back and forth of them, like where he's talking about being a good friend, when they talk about like just all those things. And it's just as much it's my favorite version of Hulk. I mean, like, look at like basically what I'm sitting in right now. That is my favorite scene.
All right.
Like he has too many. Like his are like, because his character changes so much over time. Basically he has so many, but also he has so many that occur after Dark World.
Yeah. And then the last category is something that is so easy we can just breeze through. What is the most rewatchable solo movie? Can I answer first? Yes.
I wrote this down in my notes. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's not close at all. Obviously, the answer is Thor Ragnarok.
This question is fucking stupid on this episode.
It is. I'll be honest with you, it's really only interesting on Captain America because even with Iron Man, the answer is obvious.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious.
Iron Man too.
Yes, exactly. No, I have a question.
Okay, well, you know what? Let's do. How about we do this? Because we are willing to accept the idea that the true Thor trilogy is Ragnarok, Infinity War, Endgame. What is your best solo movie out of those three?
If the question is rewatchable, the answer is still Ragnarok. Best, I think the answer is Infinity War.
But like, I can think like AC, you might go Infinity War.
Yeah, but damn, I love Ragnarok. But yeah, I thought Infinity War was the best movie in the whole entire MCU, in my opinion, anyway. So I'll have to go that. And Thor actually had the most screen time in that movie, and I thought that he carried that film along with Thanos. Thor and Thanos carried. Yeah,
I think that Infinity War is better. I think Ragnarok is more rewatchable, just because it is kind of hard to rewatch at the ending of Infinity War. It just gets a downer. You don't feel great after you watch it.
Like you can make a case for Infinity War being a Thor movie the way Civil War is Captain
America. Say it. I don't know what he's gonna say, but he's gonna say it.
I feel like it must be obvious what I'm the idea of what I'm gonna say, but like most rewatchable, obviously Ragnarok. If we're talking about just like if it comes on TBS, what am I gonna watch? But my favorite Thor movie is and forever will be Endgame, because you get to see Thor ripped to pieces and building back up.
That's fair.
And you don't really get to see him ripped to pieces to the degree that he is, obviously, until he fails at killing Thanos.
And that actually brings up something that I wanted to get to. Usually you leave these via voicemails, but I want to give you a little bit to talk about Thor from the homosexual perspective. as you have with other characters.
All right. Yeah, so when we first meet Thor, we've got the long hair, and again, the corny outfit. It's not good. It's not corny like Captain America is corny, and you're like, oh, well, it's charming. It's bad.
I mean, he has his helmet with the wings at that point too.
Exactly. But then like I know that this is apparently important, even though it's never explained why those like big circles on his breastplate are so important, but like Odin rips them off, so it's like, okay, whoa, chill out.
I think they're like, those wireless charging stations that you have for your cell phone. It lies back there, and you just leave all your devices on him.
He can put Mjolnir up to it.
Yeah. It's a literal charge.
Yeah, but it's just like, he's just a mess, frankly, in the first Thor, and he cleans up his act by the second movie, but he's looking the same. Obviously, he's lost that godforsaken helmet, but ultimately he is still a hunk. He's a major hunk in the first two movies, and like I said with Captain America, when Captain America got bulked up and became a hunk from a twink, is plenty of people will refer to him as daddy, especially I would say more because he's hairier, and that is an important thing. And he just seems like more of an aggressor and he seems older, but not more mature, older than Captain America does when he gets instantly bulked up. And so you've got that like daddy hunk element, which is great. And then like he just is knocking it off over the green fucking monster when he gets his head shaved. And that's a reference for all our Red Sox fans. And
just like Red talking Sox. About the earlier parts, just because he's such
sorry AC.
Just because he's so because it's kind of this common thing that you seem to find like a lot of the male actors in MCU just get jacked for the roles. He is really the only character that actually gets treated like eye candy.
Yeah, because I mean that's actually really interesting. I've never fully,
because you don't really like it. Kind of happens with Cap, but they don't really like.
Yeah, actually, with like the America's ass, I guess.
Like later on at that point, but immediately like when he like shows up on Earth and they're watching him change, they're just like ogling him the whole way through, and they kind of make a point like in every Thor, there's always at least one point where he has to just kind of be like slowly shirtless and like showing off the full body.
It's summed up best by the skeleton that's sitting across from him in Muspelheim at the beginning of Thor Ragnarok, and that is and for anyone who's listening, I just dropped my jaw. And yeah, that's actually really interesting. I've never thought about the fact that he's the fuckable Avenger. He's not the strongest Avenger. No. He's the fuckable Avenger.
I mean, he's Point Break, which I think that I would go on record to say that Patrick Swayze in Point Break is probably the sexiest character in the history of the movie. So I think that the fact that that's the comparison point is apt.
Yeah. But he's got the shaved head, or not the shaved head, the cut hair. The cut hair with the trimmer beard is great. And like Thor Ragnarok, like Taika Waititi deserved an Oscar for that choice in and of itself. And then obviously we get into Infinity War, which is basically the same, although we see a lot more sacrifice, which is nice, and we like selflessness with a daddy. But I think the ultimate daddiness obviously comes when we see him fat, which the fat Thor was a cultural reset for me, at least. And some people, I think, had a second cultural reset a little bit earlier, but with Professor Hulk. But I don't know. It was kind of like, whoa, for me, but it just didn't the same way. For me, Fat Thor was a cultural reset, and I was like, oh my God. Now, did I wish that they hit him with a razor when he was still Fat Thor? Yes. Yeah. Okay. I wish that Cap was like
here's my razor, bud. Before they like battled Thanos, because if
how crazy would it be? Well, like it's funny how his like beard gets braided, like when he actually like.
I
thought it was a
thought about
fire
that. I
beard.
think that's because that was a traditional thing that would be done by the Vikings, and so this was like the power of this fake god / alien.
But essentially, like electricity braided it, which was like amazing in itself.
Yeah,
like
well, you know.
I wanted
if I was
to
the god of
ask you a
thunder, I would
question
hope
about...
that thunder could braid my hair too.
Fair enough. I wanted to ask a question about, so the fact you mentioned earlier about how like him being hairy, does that make him, that makes him more daddy? Is that the fact that he's hairy?
Traditionally a daddy has more hair, if not just specifically a beard, just because like, you know, a beard is just symbolic of like an older man.
So I want to propose one thing about what makes Thor really daddy of MCU. There's a specific line. So we know Captain America achieves his daddy level when he has the beard.
His peak daddy level.
His peak daddy. But what makes Thor, in my opinion, then like the daddy of it all is he drops the line when he sees him for the first time when he lands in Wakanda, says, "I see you copy my beard." So his beard, in my opinion, then becomes like the symbolic like daddiness of like the whole MCU.
I like this take.
This is a really good take. I like this take a lot. I disagree.
Okay.
And this is why. That line is symbolic of something we've talked about before. We talked about earlier with Thor, of his shield, his defense mechanism. It's him seeing Captain America, who is to Thor like completely put together. Obviously, we know that Cap has his own like inner struggles constantly, and that's, you know, because he's a good character, a good movie character. You know, we know that he has his inner struggles. But to Thor, you got to think Cap and Tony both look really put together.
Yes.
And especially because of what Thor gets to see of them. And I think that is Thor kind of like pulling out his dick a little bit.
So it's more dick measuring contest.
Yeah, that's dick measuring up
that's
against
fair. That is fair.
Cap, who still has his pants on, going, "I don't need to do this."
Got it.
You know?
That's
so
fair.
I think that's actually more comparable to that. And I think actually that is something that takes away from the daddiness of Thor, because when you analyze him, which is not something you do when considering a daddy, but because that's what we're doing and that's what this podcast is about. When you do that, I don't want a daddy who he has daddy issues. My daddy can't have daddy issues.
That is true.
And he continues to have daddy issues to the nth degree, and very publicly, I think is important. You know, Tony Stark has daddy issues up until.
So then, can I offer then who is probably the daddy of the MCU?
Who would you say?
I think it's got to be Thanos. He is literally the father of like 4 children who are taking over the world. Everyone is his child. He seems to fit, at least physically, a lot of the features. Minus fact, I don't know if his
he has a very steadfast opinion of certain things that he really can't justify, but
like he's confident,
you'll never stop him.
And I don't want to be a bitch, but like the big problem with Thanos is that he commits genocide, and so I think
Daddy's gonna commit genocide, right?
Yeah, we don't care for that as much.
All right. Fair.
Ultimately, and this is evidenced by the Daddies tournament that I put on, but like, you know, and again, that was also completely made by me. This is my opinion. But I personally think
you're the most qualified currently to answer this question, so you don't have to
qualify. And if I died tomorrow, I'm happy with that being on my gravestone.
Right.
But I think in a lot of ways, the daddy of the MCU is Tony Stark.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I don't think I would have answered that way until today when I rewatched Endgame and I wanted to Be bent over every single table by Tony Stark at his compound up in.
It's me censoring that live.
Right.
What?
I said I was censoring it live for comedy points because I was hoping that I was going to do the thing where they bleep it out and then you get to imagine what you're saying, but it didn't work because I actually wasn't muting you. Anyway, let's wrap this up.
Like, the ingenuity of
Zaddy is Professor Hulk, though.
Fair enough. Yeah.
I want to wrap this up because
one final point about just the Iron Man situation for Springthorpe. Great choice. I feel like nanotech is really going to work in your favor.
That's good.
All right, and yeah, AC's got to run in a minute, so yeah, guys, just let me start with AC in case we go over time. I wanted to get it out. AC, final thoughts on Thor, and more importantly, what do you want? He is the first of these character retrospectives that is still ongoing. So, what are your thoughts, and what do you want to see him do next?
I'm really excited for his character going forward because I think they have a lot of different directions that they can take it, and I think them choosing to go into the Jane Foster's Thor direction is really. I think it'll even freshen up the series even more, even as we got that in Ragnarok. But I'm excited because there's so many characters in Thor that we have not seen yet, villains and heroes alike. So I think they have a chance to do something really special. And obviously his interaction with the Guardians is going to be something to watch as well. But yeah, I'm excited for that for sure.
And where can we find you?
Oh yeah. You can follow me at AC Spotlight 95 on Twitter, and obviously follow this podcast, MCUniversity podcast, and hit us up if you have any ideas for any types of shows that we want to do in the future, because obviously content is going to be changing.
Yeah, and if there's anyone you want us to talk to during this quarantine time, because basically everyone's available. So
yeah, that too, and of course I'll follow all these great gentlemen. Mike, thanks for joining us today. It was really cool stuff.
Thank you, AC.
All right. Speaking of which, see you, AC. Speaking of which, Michael Springthorpe, what are your thoughts on Thor going forward, and where can we find you?
I would love for Thor, as we know him, to only be in 2 more movies. I think he's getting really close to where where his arc ends, and I don't want him to overstay his welcome. So I would love for him to be in Love and Thunder and Guardians 3. And I would even love if Love and Thunder is his big bow, and then Guardians 3 is kind of almost the cameo position. I also think I would love for Tessa Thompson or Valkyrie rather, to be the new Thor, quote unquote, just because Natalie Portman, I don't think she has, I want her to be able to do our tour movies if she wants. I don't. You know what?
I think she only does like a movie a year anyway, so I don't really.
Right. I also want Tessa to be able to do that, and not that she'll be committed. But you know what? I don't know. I love Valkyrie as the new Thor. But I think he's very close, and I hope that they don't stretch him out too far. Yeah. But I love him. He's my boyfriend. He's a big golden retriever, and I hope he doesn't. He doesn't get soured in my mouth. Also, please bring me on for the Grandmaster retrospective that you will, of course, be doing.
Yeah, of course.
Because I was watching Ragnarok. I have a lot of thoughts.
Okay.
But you guys can follow me on Twitter at SpringthorpeMan. I'm doing a gay icons It's called May Gayness. It's a March Madness style bracket right now. You can follow me on Twitter at SpringthorpeMan or on Instagram if you're hot.
All right, and Jerome, your final thoughts?
Yeah, well, I mean, I always felt like Thor should have won the character bracket first and foremost.
Yes, retweet.
All in all. But yeah, I agree with Springthorpe. I think that Thor is getting to just the end of his arc, but kind of in the way that I felt like if they kept going with Tony Stark, like I would be happy that he kind of just shows up to the family reunion. So basically the Avengers, like he would just show up and do his like bits there, but he doesn't necessarily need to have dedicated stories. As for what I want to see with his story, because this is his kind of like, I've decided to like find my own path. Like I hope I get like freshman college Thor, like just like bright eyed into the world, and like is like kind of running through his like quote unquote like horse listing of like what do I want to learn and become, while like everyone in terms of like the Valkyries, and I'm guessing it's gonna be Jane Foster as the new Thor, and maybe this Better Ray Bill that comes in, like they can take care of like the busy stuff, whereas Thor is just kind of figuring himself out, and then eventually has to step in to help with the battle, but ultimately is kind of doing his own thing that way. Like I want the like full-on self-discovery, happens to be the most powerful person in the world or in the universe, but also kind of just really wants to get to know himself.
Yeah, and where can people find you?
Black Dragon Roll.
Wonderful.
It'll be really cool to see also what Thor looks like on the Loki series, especially if it's isn't that series supposed to be like what Loki does with the Tesseract and like what
it seems like that's the case. I think it's probably more complicated than that, if only because we know that for sure, like a year and a half out. Yeah. And I really doubt Marvel would tell us the whole thing. I think there's gonna be some surprises in there.
I just think it would be really cool to see Chris Hemsworth play Thor through Loki's eyes. Especially 2012 Loki or whatever year that was.
Yeah. So I'm really excited to see what they do with Thor next. I think that this next arc with Jane Foster returning is good, especially because now that Thor is more comedy, that one of the things that sticks out so much as a bad thing in Thor: The Dark World is like the semi side plot of Sif being jealous of Jane Foster, which feels like so like 1998. Like
I'm
it just
never
feels
jealous
like
Thor. Like
exactly, but I think that because the tone of the movies is now much more fun, I think that there's a way to do a more like comedy madcap, like farcical thing with him running back into Jane and like, is he with Valkyrie? Like that, I think that stuff I think can be played for laughs, and I think it's fun.
We might be getting like some level. I don't think they'll do that, but I wouldn't be surprised if they do. Like we might get like woke-ish Thor, where he.
I don't know.
This, like,
I want love triangle Thor.
Yeah, exactly. I think
love
that's
triangle
fun.
Thor would be great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Back in the picture.
Especially if they turn it on its head, and whereas you would think it would be that both Valkyrie and Jane love Thor, if it's instead that they both love Jane, I think is fun. I think that's very fun, and I hope that's what they do.
I think there's there like you know the very classic trope of like if the couple's like on a date playing pool and like usually it's the guy like leaning over, like maybe Jane's trying to like swing Mjolnir for the first time and he's trying to like put his hand on her like back and like you want to go lower with it. Like and then obviously be rejected for all of that because it's like that. I think that's gonna be great.
Yeah, that's exciting to see. Thor: Love and Thunder. There's not a movie I'm more excited about
without question
on the horizon. It might be the most excited I've been for, other than Endgame and Infinity War, probably the movie I'm most excited for ever before it came out. So yeah. Anyway,
the Spider-Man movies.
Like the first I was excited. I was nervous though, just because the other Spider-Man movies were not.
Okay.
It's perfect.
What you got,
Sweet, where are you?
Avatar 2.
But... No, not at all.
Well, we're speaking within MCU, so that's
no, I'm not speaking of MCU.
I'm speaking within the MCU.
Also, Avatar 2 is part of MCU.
Also, I'll believe Avatar 2 is coming out when I see it.
Right.
Like what? Does anyone even know if Sam Worthington's still alive? Like, get the hell out of here. Anyway, you can follow me on Twitter at the Jake Christie. Please, like AC said, rate if you subscribe to this pod, show it to your friends, and please like reach out to us if there's anyone you want to talk to, because we would love to talk to some people about the MCU. And if you want us to do any topics, anything you find fun, the very worst thing that can happen is that we say, oh yeah, we'll consider doing that, and then don't do it. So that's not that bad.
One quick pitch: Avatar 2. Because it's such an environmental theme, they're going to face their own ice age, and that's how the Frost Giants are born, and that's why they're part of the MCU.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Thank you.
Anyway, tune back in next week when we do another character retrospective. It's great to see you guys, and peace.
Peace.
Bye.
All right, thank you so much, Victor, for coming on.
That was super fun.
Bye, guys. I'm gonna edit it so I can get it up by tomorrow morning.
See you around.
Well, I just god damn it. I'll
What?
text you guys.
All right, bye.
Bye.